don't have my phone here. I don't have my... Oh, well. Okay. Welcome to the Next News Network. I'm Gary Franchi. It is 8:03 p.m. in your nation's capital, August 27th. It's Thursday. We've got a lot of news to get to tonight. We're going to kick off things with your White House rundown. And we got all the details on that new shock to Canada. President Trump signing in the Oval Office today. Also, Karoline Leavitt with some parting words on her way out the door. We got news about that massive flood that happened in Nepal. We've also got some new polling data with respect to President Trump surging against a certain president of our past. We got news also out of O'Hare Airport. Some troubling issues with American Airlines. And the Russians are signing a deal with Iran. It has many people taking note of certain scriptures that line up. We've also got some news out of New Jersey with respect to RFK Jr. and a big scandal at the NFL. So we're going to get into all that right now, but first, your White House rundown. I'm Gary Franchi, Chief White House Correspondent for the Next News Network, bringing you everything out of the White House over the last 24 hours, streaming with our partners at Trump Daily Post. And today, President Trump took a pen to a map. Lake Ontario is now Lake America. He also teed up tariffs on Canadian cars, sent Karoline Leavitt out on her final day at the podium, and flew to Houston with a Texas scorecard that reads like a victory lap. So let's walk the day. According to the daily guidance, the president opened with executive time at 8 a.m. He closed policy meeting in the Oval at 10:30, signing time at 1:30, and wheels up for Houston and a Republican National Committee engagement at 6 p.m. local, also closed press. From the in-town pool, reporters checked in at 10:45 and noted the Marine Guard was not posted outside the West Wing. By 11:35, the Marine was standing at the Oval door, and the White House called a lunch lid until 12:30. At 1:05, the pool gathered at the press room doors. 15 minutes later, they were inside. President Trump was at the Resolute desk with Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, Trade Representative James Greer, and Stephen Miller. Then came the signing. President Trump renamed Lake Ontario as Lake America. Interior and the U.S. Board on Geographic Names have 30 days to scrub it through every federal system, maps, contracts, the GNIS database. The maps in the Oval read, making the Great Lakes even greater. Ottawa rejected it within the hour. Effective immediately, that's what the president wrote. At 1:24, he took questions. He announced tariffs coming on Canadian cars, and his reason was blunt: Canada has treated the United States badly. On Senator Ted Cruz in 2028, he called him talented and said he might run. He said Vladimir Putin will not attack NATO territory. He said the U.S. has offered to help Nepal after a brutal event there. On Iran, he said the country is broke and the Strait of Hormuz is open. On sanctioning Chinese banks, he hinted without commenting or committing. The session ended at 1:33. In a White House statement titled "Never Surrender," the administration closed the book on Karoline Leavitt's run as the 36th press secretary, youngest ever to hold the job. She briefed at the sticks one last time this morning. President Trump called her one of the best in the history of the office. And remember, she postponed her maternity leave after an assassination attempt targeting the president, and that's the tenure. Back at the pool at the stakeout location, a restricted group gathered for the departure. The motorcade reached the ellipse at 2:58. President Trump walked straight to Marine One and lifted off at 3:03 without stopping for questions. The chopper circled the White House twice on the way out, the same move he's made before to look over the ballroom construction. Marine One touched down at Joint Base Andrews at 3:14, boarding Air Force One. The president at 3:19 gave the pool a thumbs up and said nothing. Derek Isaacman, Stephen Chung, Kevin Hassett, Michael Krastios, and Natalie Harp were among those on board. Wheels up at 3:29. 2 hours and 40 minutes to Houston. The fact sheet the White House put out for the trip is for workers now pays zero federal income tax on qualifying overtime. About 4 million seniors pay nothing on Social Security. Average refund $4,344. Violent crime down 13%. Arlington homicides cut 60%. 15 straight months with no illegal alien releases at the border, and July apprehensions down 94%. Texas gets $7 billion from the Border Security Fund, plus a water deal with Mexico and a $750 million sterile fly facility to kill off the screwworm. So that's the day. A map redrawn, a trade opponent put on notice, a press secretary sent off with honors, and a state-by-state receipt for the promises he made. And when you win, you show the receipts. That's the latest from the White House. He says in y'all remember what happened when we renamed the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. Well, now it's happening to our neighbors to the north after they decided to get cozy. We filed all the necessary papers. This is official, effective immediately. Ottawa found out the same way you did, and the Interior Department is already updating the map. $60 billion a year, and that's what on average for 15 straight years. He said it standing over the order as he signed it, and he was careful. He loves the people of Canada. He just doesn't think representatives do an appropriate job. And that's the whole thing, folks. The people are fine. The government is a parasite. I'm going to roll you the moment as Aide explains in plain English why the deepest water in that lake is American territory, and then Trump's own line about what he's coming for next. So the Interior Secretary Doug Burgum posted within the hour, "We are on it, Mr. President." And that's not a press release. That's a department committing to implement the same day. Is on the clock at the board on Geographic Names. And now watch what Trump, Canadian cars. Let's take a look at the latest here, White House. POTUS signing an executive order renaming Lake Ontario as Lake America. By the authority vested in me as president, by the Constitution and laws of the United States, is hereby ordered. Let's go into that moment.
Be changing Lake Ontario, effective immediately, to Lake America. That's going to take place right now as I sign the order. Do you have anything to say about it, Ben?
Yes, sir. So this is a straightforward but important executive order. It directs Secretary Burgum and the Department of the Interior to update the Geographic Names Information Service to reflect that the lake once known as Lake Ontario will, from this day forward, be known as Lake America. This is a lake that has most of its volume in the United States. The deepest parts of the lake sit in United States territory, so this is an American lake.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. And we filed all the necessary papers, documents, everything else. We notified all of the various people that we have to notify. So we've done everything that you have to do. And this is official, effective immediately.
You know, I mean, I love America, but Lake America, I don't know. I think that he should have named it Lake Washington. I think that would have had a better name, personally. But I think he's just trying to make a point to Canada, without question. And so the Interior Secretary Doug Burgum wastes no time. He's already got the USGS redrawing the maps. We're on it, Mr. President. The places and waters that border our nation and support our economy should reflect the greatness of the United States. At USGS maps our country for the world to see, and we are proud to implement your executive order to rename Lake America. And that is the post from the White House. Effective immediately, Lake Ontario is renamed Lake America. Oh, this is so great. The greatest troll against those to the north of us here. Again, here's that White House post. Official. It is official, effective immediately. It's now called Lake America. They also did, I guess the White House decided to make a Lego meme. Here's the meme that they posted. Lake America, all the beautiful states. There's my state, forever blue. Ugh. And then there's Lake America. Gotta love it, right? So the White House already firing off the memes. The president participated in the signing time today. Executive Order 14420, the Interior Department has 30 days to get the geographic names in the information system. Here's more from the president.
We're going to be changing the name of Lake Ontario, effective immediately, to Lake America. That's going to take place right now as I sign the order. Do you have anything to say about it, Ben?
Yes, sir.
So President Trump floated this on Truth Social 2 days ago. And what started as a Truth Social threat just became official. Trump signing the order in the Oval.
Okay.
Here we go. The Sharpie of power. Hitting the paper. So Trump floats the renaming Lake Ontario to Lake America. The United States is giving serious consideration to changing the name of Lake Ontario to Lake America, and that we don't expect to be doing much business with Ontario anyway.
So this is Lake Ontario in Canada and in the United States. But we're going to make a little change. We're going to call it something different than Lake Ontario. We're going to call it Lake America. And all it takes is a good pen and some intelligence. So Lake Ontario, that's gone. Lake America. So now we have a lake, and now we have a Gulf, because we have the Gulf of America, and now we have Lake America, without the of. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy Lake America.
Even the foreign press is picking it up, and they're noting Ottawa has not changed a thing on the Canadian side. The lake is shared by U.S. and Canada, and the Canadian government has not changed it. Well, it doesn't really matter what the Canadians do. They can scream and yell all they want, but our maps will reflect the new name. Trump said it today. We're going to be changing the name effective immediately. He says the U.S. has lost an average $60 billion a year to Canada.
We'll be changing the name of Lake Ontario, effective immediately, to Lake America. We lose on average over the last 15 years $60 billion a year carrying Canada, so we just can't do it anymore. We love the people of Canada. I don't think their representatives do an appropriate job. Maybe they'll change. I really don't know. I mean, it doesn't make much difference. But we can't let the whole Canadian thing that's been going on for decades.
Can't let it continue. I'm not going to let them kick us around. The lake was step one. Now come the tariffs on Canadian cars. President Trump says maybe an ocean is next. Is he going to rename an ocean now?
So we're going to be doing tariffs on their cars that are coming in at a substantial level, because we want to make the cars here. We don't want if they can make their own cars if they want, and they can continue to make their cars for Canada, but we don't want them to make cars for the United States of America. It's very simple. Likewise, many other products. So the lake change, Lake of America, was something I've been thinking about for a long time, actually. As you know, we took something called the Gulf of Mexico, we changed it, and now it's very routinely the Gulf of America. So if you think about it, we have a Gulf and we have a lake. Now all we need is an ocean. So maybe we'll have to change the name of the Atlantic and or
change the name of the Atlantic and or the Pacific Ocean. What will you call it, sir? And on how Canada treats its supposed ally, Eric Doherty has the CBC memo telling staff not to call 9/11 a terrorist attack. They want personnel to call it a hijacking. Do not refer to September 11th attacks as terrorist attacks. Crashes is also an acceptable way to phrase it per internal memo obtained by the New York Post. Not how an ally acts. They want to wipe clean Islamic terror against America. That is your Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. So we have a Gulf and we have a lake. Now all we need is an ocean. He's floating renaming the Atlantic and the Pacific, and he said it with a straight face. Ottawa taxed our goods, cozied up to Beijing, assumed Washington folks like it always folds, and President Trump didn't touch their water or their border. He just took their name off it. So ask Ottawa a simple question. What exactly do you think was going to happen? We supply 9 of the 11 icebreakers, keeping those lakes open. Nearly $4 billion American dollars into that fresh water in 10 years. We pay for the ships, we pay for the cleanup, and until Wednesday, that lake carried the name of a Canadian province. Not anymore. Now, of course, watch the Legacy Press spend a week weeping over a lake and never once ask about the $60 billion, and watch which Republicans go quiet. Now tell me in the comments, Atlantic or Pacific next? Share this with somebody who still thinks tariffs on Canadian cars aren't coming, because they are. Substantial level. And I'll be inside that building when the next one drops. So Burgum said Interior is on it, and I'll have the map the second it changes. So text White House to 844-840-4963. Next News Network carries credentials inside that building, and the file our people pull off the ground there hits your phone every single night, whether or not YouTube lets this video breathe. Now, reading is round 1. Are you ready for round 2? Text signal to that same number and list in the Next News Signal Corps, and you are in one place with thousands of patriots making real missions with real ranks. Come in and get in the room tonight. Oh, that was a great story. I saw that one come across the line. I'm like, oh, we got to get this. Oh, yeah. Karoline Leavitt going to The View. Well, whatever. Okay, so let's move into the next story here, because we aren't going to be talking about Karoline Leavitt. Torching the press corps on her way out, 20 months unbeaten. So let's get into the latest from that story. Karoline Leavitt is done, 20 months at that podium, and the press corps never landed a punch on her. Her last hit on the way out, Democrats want to open our prisons, abolish our police, and keep our borders wide open, and then she read the votes, tips, overtime, Social Security, and listen to who voted no. It was 20 months. 20 months at the most hostile podium in American politics. I've been in that room. I've seen just how dirty it can be. And the press corps never once broke her. She was 27 when she started, 2 babies at home now, and she out-argued a credentialed room every single day without a producer in her ear. And on her way out, she handed you the entire midterm case, and I'm going to play you her exact line about what the Democrats want to do to your prisons, your police, and your border, plus the 4 roll call votes she read that gut the affordability pitch. So hold on, because open enrollment season is bearing down, and there's a bulletin here that will never scroll across a mainstream chyron. It's developing patriots, millions of seniors overpaying for Medicare right now, and the outfits that could fix it earn more when nobody notices. Big insurance runs on confusions, the mailers, the robocalls, the fine print that nobody finishes. Now the part they cut for time. There is a newsroom for your Medicare. It's called Chapter. Independent Medicare advisors, the only advisors comparing every plan nationwide. Chapter reviews your doctors and prescriptions and reports back what actually fits. If you're already in the right place, they'll confirm if you are in the best plan. If not, they'll help you switch plans. One call under 20 minutes and it costs you nothing. 910-728-4109. That's the number on the screen. 910-728-4109. Like Karoline, know when to walk and know when to stay put. So he was spinning up the press before I was even alive. That's Karoline Leavitt on President Trump. And she's right, the tabloid wars ran in New York decades before she was even born. Then she drops the line that I keep replaying. They joke he's the real communications director. Now watch her say it. Let's get into the post here. Press secretary is the best to ever do it. Thank you for your service. We will miss you. That's Rapid Response posting to the press secretary in one of her final hits outside the White House today.
Feeling good. You know, of course, it's a little bit bittersweet. It's bitter because I'm leaving a job that I love so very much. And it's been the honor and blessing of a lifetime to work for this president, President Trump. There will never be another like him, and to serve as his spokesperson behind that podium. It has been the adventure of a lifetime. And I'm so grateful to him for believing in me and allowing me to serve in this role over the last 20 months. And now being very understanding as a boss and a friend that it's time for me to take a step back so I can spend more time with my two beautiful children. Of course, I have a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old. They're just at a critical time in their life where they need their mom home a little bit more. So I look forward to spending more time with them, but continuing to serve the president as a top advisor on the outside. I'm grateful to him that he still wants me to stick around just in a way that I can spend more time with family. So it's been, again, just such an adventure working here with the president, with our great White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, our first female chief of staff in history, and all of the great people that work around the clock here every day to make our country strong and safe and secure. It's been the adventure of a lifetime.
2 little ones at home. I could imagine what she's going through there. 20 months at the podium. She never lost around here. She is on the affordability fight. Democrats voted against no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security.
Audience needs to remember is what this president and Republicans in Congress have done. The largest middle-class tax cuts in American history. No tax on tips for our workers. No tax on overtime. No tax on Social Security for our seniors. That's putting more money in your pockets today. And Democrats voted against every single one of those policies. So they want to talk about affordability. They voted to raise your taxes. They voted against the largest middle-class tax cuts in American history. Look at our border. The president inherited a mess, a wide-open border from the Democrats in the Biden administration. He sealed it on day one. We are deporting violent, illegal alien criminals from this country. The Democrats are complete radicals on this issue. They want to open our prisons, abolish our police, and keep our borders wide open to countries and criminals all over this world. So there's a huge contrast on the ballot, and you're going to continue to hear the president drive that contrast and travel across the country.
That's the contrast she's been driving. Now the president himself says that she was spinning up the press before she was even born.
Well, something that's so great about President Trump, and I remember this all the time, is he's been dealing with the media and the press long before he even got into politics. I mean, he was, of course, a businessman, built a business empire in New York City and was on the front pages of many tabloids and was spinning up the press before I was even alive. So he's a pro at this game, and he gets how it's played. And so I've learned so much from him with respect to how to deal with the media. And he really is, like I say, his best spokesperson. We joke he's the real communications director here at the White House. So just following his lead and getting insight into how he thinks has been tremendously helpful to me as a young professional.
She calls him the real communications director. She also calls him the best boss that she's ever had.
So you spend a lot of time together, but I will just say this. He is the best boss I've ever had. He is so fun. He has a great sense of humor. So many stories I could share about just traveling around the world with him, Air Force One, Marine One, countries all over the world, across our great country here, meeting with great Americans. He has a huge heart. He's hospitable. He's generous. And he loves this country and the American people. And so just so many moments I've seen him behind the scenes, away from the cameras, where he's touched the heart, I know, of so many Americans across the country, whether it's our veterans, our Gold Star families, our angel moms. He loves this.
He loves his country. Quote, they voted to raise your taxes. They voted against the largest middle-class tax cuts in American history. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. Every Democrat in Congress voted no. Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, all of them. And now they want to lecture you about the price of eggs. That's contempt, and it's on paper. So thank her, genuinely. 20 months of standing in front of that fire so the rest of us didn't have to. And she's walking out on her own terms to go be a mom to a 4-month-old. Now watch the spin start. Chaos, cracks, a resignation. It's all a lie. She stays on as an outside advisor to the president. And here's your job. Memorize those 4 votes, tips, overtime, Social Security, the middle class cut. Yeah, when your brother-in-law brings up affordability at Thanksgiving, you hand him the roll call. Drop a thank you to Karoline in the comments and share this with somebody still buying the Affordability Act. She gave us the ammunition, so use it. You see Karoline Leavitt behind that podium there for 20 months. And our press pool stood in that same room with her. Text White House to 844-840-4963, and the reports our people pull from inside building land on your phone every night, whether or not YouTube feels like showing you this segment. And now some of you read that file and immediately you want to do something with it, so text Signal to that same number and enlist in the next News Signal Corps. Real missions, real ranks, a command center, and patriots who move information instead of waiting for permission. I need you in this fight, so get in tonight. Karoline Leavitt finally walking out the door. Who will replace her? That's the big question. But speaking of chaos in the press corps, we're going to move to chaos in Nepal. Thousands missing after a massive flood tore through. Looks like 65 Americans are missing. At least 350 confirmed dead, 1,000 gone. We have the details on that right now. The floods came in suddenly and exploded like a bomb. That is just one survivor on the Nepal-Tibet border. Nature reports around 350 dead, more than 1,000 missing, and Nepali officials say at least 65 Americans are among the missing. We have the security camera clip that people only had seconds. Now, the Red Cross, it says that at least 10,000 families lost their homes in this, roads buried in mud. Critical bridges connecting those villages ripped clean away. In some valleys you can only reach by helicopter now, which is why Nepal Army crews are flying the search. And 65 Americans are somewhere in there. Officials on the ground say they expect the death toll to rise, so stay with me because the U.S. Geological Survey already had to correct its own call on what caused this. Now I'll walk you through the original report and, of course, the revision. And those families along the Nepal-Tibet border, they only had seconds, and that's the part that stays with me. Nobody plans for the thing that arrives without warning. Here at home, the warning's already on the calendar. We have midterm elections coming up, control of Congress on the line, and markets hate uncertainty. Uncertainty breeds volatility. And this could be the most volatile stretch for the stock market and the economy we've seen in years. Physical gold and silver hedge the volatility. Noble Gold Investments has spent over a decade helping everyday Americans protect their wealth with precious metals. It's simple, easy, and safe. Go to nextnewsgold.com or call Noble Gold at 877-646-5347. For America's 250th birthday, mention my name and get a free 10-ounce silver bar when you open a new qualified account. Now let's get back to what happened in Nepal. Now, the USGS first reported an earthquake in the area minutes before the flash flood. Now believes it was a powerful landslide. Watch how the record got fixed in real time. And one theory, not a finding, is that a glacier broke off first. So around 350 people have died. That's the record. More than 1,000 missing after a deadly deluge of rocks, mud, and water hit villages along the border of Nepal and Tibet. Glacier collapse is what they're officially stating. Fox reports that the rescue teams are searching for survivors.
Rescue teams right now in Nepal are in a race against the clock as they search for any sort of survivors, with so many still missing, including at least 65 Americans, according to officials in Nepal. There are real fears the death toll will only increase. As you look at this video, that is security camera footage from the Nepal-Tibet border. It shows people on the ground there had only seconds to find safety. A wall, as you see there, of water, mud, and debris swept away people, cars, and buses, as well as many buildings that stood in the way.
The floods came in suddenly and exploded like a bomb. The river looked small from distance, but it suddenly started overflowing.
Suddenly started overflowing. That's one account right there. Fox says USGS revised its initial call on the disaster. It was first reported as an earthquake, is now believed to have been a powerful landslide.
Now, initially, the U.S. Geological Survey reported an earthquake in the area minutes before the flash flood, but the USGS now believes it was a powerful landslide that struck. One theory, part of a glacier broke off, triggering an avalanche of ice and rock, which in turn caused the flood. The Red Cross says at least 10,000 families have lost their homes and rescued.
My goodness. The Fox report Fox reports roads in Nepal have been buried in mud, critical bridges ripped away, leaving some flood-hit areas reachable only by helicopter. Marco Rubio says the U.S. stands ready to support the government of Nepal.
Roads have been buried in mud, and several of the critical bridges that connect these communities, well, they were ripped away during the floods.
So we've been able to access some of the affected areas where there are many, many traumatized people. But unfortunately, some of the areas can only be reached by helicopter. So the Nepal Army has been carrying out search and rescue for them.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying that we express our solidarity and are united in prayer for the Nepali people following the devastating floods. The State Department stands ready to support the government of Nepal with needed.
A pilot was flying over the disaster. Says it was one of the most horrific things he's ever witnessed.
Now, we also spoke with one pilot yesterday in Nepal who was actually flying over the area when disaster struck. He tells us it was one of the most horrific things he's ever witnessed, and he felt so helpless not being able to get on the ground and aid those people who were in desperate.
The river looks small from a distance, but it suddenly started overflowing and swept. That's the witness. That's the whole thing right there. A small river, then a wall of water, mud, and rock, taking people, cars, buses, and buildings off the map in seconds. So ask yourself what you would do if the road was gone and no truck was coming. That's Nepal tonight. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he said that the United States stands ready to support the government of Nepal with needed humanitarian assistance. Stands ready, so we'll watch that. But tonight, this isn't a scorecard. It is a pilot who was flying over that valley when it hit, told Fox it was one of the most horrific things he'd ever witnessed. He felt helpless because he couldn't get on the ground. Nepal Army crews and Red Cross teams are still out there working. If you have family in the region, contact the State Department and share with somebody who's waiting on word so they see it, and pray for them. Those numbers are going to change. So 65 American families are waiting on a phone call tonight, and the State Department's response to this is exactly the kind of thing we cover from the inside. So text White House to 844-840-4963. Next News Network is credentialed in that building, and what our press pool pulls out of it lands on your phone nightly, whether or not YouTube ever serves you this video. Then take the next step. Text Signal to that same number and list in the Next News Signal Corps, where patriots organize in one place and keep real information moving without a gatekeeper deciding who gets it. Man, some of that footage was just horrific. Okay, we're going to be moving into our next story. CNN making a confession. One of their own pollsters with some shocking news. And I think some of the fans of the Gipper might be a little distressed tonight. but I think that there's probably more who support President Trump, so we're going to get into those details. "53%, that is the number that CNN's own data guy put on his own screen. A majority of Republicans named President Trump the Republican president they most admire. Reagan, 18%. Lincoln, 8%. CNN had to say it out loud on their air. And the punchline at the end of the clip is even better. Reagan at 18% from Republicans in 2026. That's the number that ends a 10-year argument. Every consultant, every donor class Sunday show voice told you the real GOP was waiting in the wings and you were just the fever. Well, you're 53%. You are the party. Now stick with me because I'm rolling the CNN clip itself word for word, including the line where their guy hedges that Lincoln is, by most historic accounts, the greatest ever, plus Karoline Leavitt's White House release, the one titled 14 Wins You May Have Missed. So the CNN slide, it settles who owns the Republican Party, but it doesn't settle what your money does between now and November, because we've got the midterm elections coming up with control of Congress on the line. Markets hate uncertainty. Uncertainty breeds volatility, and this could be one of the most volatile stretches for the stock market and the economy we've seen in years. So here is the good news. Noble Gold Investments has spent over a decade helping everyday Americans protect their wealth with precious metals, physical gold, and silver you can actually hold to hedge that volatility. It's simple and easy and safe. Go to nextnewsgold.com or call Noble Gold 877-646-5347. And for America's 250th, mention my name. Get a 10-ounce silver bar free when you open a new qualified account. Don't let Election Day arrive without a plan. Now back to that 53%. So the CNN analyst joked that the president printed that slide out and liked it. Sit with that. President Trump made CNN build a graphic that buries the establishment, then posted it himself. Now, watch the clip and read the exact words with me. Let's jump into it. President Trump posts the gem where CNN has to admit flat out the president Republicans most admire. It's Donald Trump, 53%. This is what President Trump posted on Truth Social. CNN. Trump ranks first in terms of president Republicans most admire, receiving nearly triple the responses Ronald Reagan received, 6 times that of Abraham Lincoln. He fundamentally transformed the GOP for generations. President Trump posting the actual clip.
The president Republicans most admire. It's Donald Trump. This is a historic comparison. A majority of Republicans say, 53% say, he's the Republican president they most admire. Ronald Reagan, who traditionally has won that much, Donald Trump nearly triples up on this. Reagan at just 18%. And then Abraham Lincoln, who by most historic accounts is the greatest president of all time. But Republicans say that the president that they most admire by, what is this? This is 6-7 times as many. Donald John Trump at 53%, easily crushing Abe Lincoln at 8%. And the Elon poll showed that he was the greatest president as well, Donald
I feel
Trump.
like this slide might end up on a printout on his.
President Trump rubbing it in with the post. That's CNN's own numbers, not ours. Karoline Leavitt put the poll right in front, straight from Breitbart. Trump is president Republicans most admire. One of her final posts as press secretary. She didn't stop at the polling. Here's the White House list. 14 wins you may have missed. And the wins keep on stacking up. Let's go a little bit deeper, shall we? President Trump is delivering the results that he promised. A landmark election. And the wins keep stacking up, from securing the landmark election integrity ruling to launching the largest visa crackdown in American history, to cutting illegals off taxpayer benefits and driving fentanyl deaths way down. The Trump administration posted another decisive week, putting the American people first. Here are the headlines that you may have missed. Trump scores major win as Supreme Court clears the way for mail-in voting order ahead of the midterms. That's the New York Post. Another headline, U.S. set for largest mass visa revocation in history, targeting up to 200,000 foreigners, officials say. And we've covered all these stories here. ICE arrests jumped nearly 50,000 in July, the highest monthly total of Trump's second term. U.S. business activity expands at the fastest pace since 2022. International student enrollment falls amid tighter U.S. visa policies, according to reports. That's from CNBC. Fox News' headline, fentanyl deaths plunged 22% as Trump White House touts crackdown on deadly drug crisis. Financial Times headline, Trump administration pauses immigrant visa applications. And this from Fox News, ICE quietly arrests jaw-dropping number of illegal immigrants in massive D.C. area operation. Another one from The Hill. Trump administration lays out new $103,000 fee proposal for H-1B visas. And the New York Post headline, Trump admin axes refundable tax credits for illegal migrants, saving taxpayers $3 billion. Another headline, Philadelphia area manufacturing activity continues to expand in August. That's the Wall Street Journal. Daily Wire headline, the illegal immigrants deported on the first flight to Haiti after Trump ends TPS. Cleveland Cliffs, Middletown steel plant getting a $1 billion upgrade. That's Axios. And USA Today's headline, Amazon is bringing a multi-billion-dollar robotics plant to Texas. So those are some of the headlines that you may have missed. We've covered them here. One of Karoline Leavitt's last posts as she exits the White House. So Donald John Trump at 53%, easily crushing Abe Lincoln at 8%. CNN said that, not Newsmax, it was CNN. The same network the president told to be quiet on August 18th is now reading his dominance off their own screen. And the priesthood that spent a decade insisting this was a hostile takeover just got their answer from their own data desk. So ask every consultant still telling a Republican candidate to keep his distance from President Trump exactly who he thinks he's running with. 18%, 8. That advice is a resignation letter. And look, admiration follows delivery. Reagan is beloved and Reagan is history. Lincoln is marble. President Trump, he sealed the border, gutted the bureaucracy, made NATO pay, and Leavitt's putting out win lists faster than the press can ignore them. That's the whole answer. So screenshot this one and share it with the relative who told you in 2016 that this wasn't who we are. And drop a comment and tell me where you were when they called you the fringe. Because when they can't beat 53%, they reach for subpoenas, and Adam Schiff is already reaching. So CNN just read that 53% out loud, and it's moments like that that get scrubbed off the feed by Friday. So let's cut them out entirely. Text White House to 844-840-4963. In the file, our credentialed press pool pulls from inside that building, lands on your phone every single night, whether or not YouTube ever bothers to show you this video. Reading it is step one, moving it is the fight. Text Signal to that same number and list to the next news Signal Corps. Take real missions with real ranks out of our command center and make sure the story survives no matter what channel they knock down. Come get in with us tonight. All right, moving right along, President Trump surging 53% over the Gipper. Yes. All right, let's move over to this bizarre, all this crazy, this is all happening at O'Hare. Fourth tire blowout exposes the FAA. We're going to dig into that. Following that report, we're going to get into the prophetic angle with Putin, Persia, signing with the king of the north amidst the Iranian conflict that's happening now. This is going to make your hair stand on end, this next story on that. And then, of course, RFK Jr. going after the governor of New Jersey and that NFL scandal coming up later in this program. Blowing right tires in your main gear. That is O'Hare Tower on live dispatch. And firefighters are walking American airline passengers down portable stairs onto a taxiway. Charlotte flight, 2 tires gone on pushback, and folks, that's the 4th blowout. At one airport this month. The FAA's answer? Well, wait till you hear it. So we're talking about 4 tire blowouts right now. One airport in 30 days, 2 of them last week, just hours apart and on different runways. And the expert on camera says it's hard to say if there's any commonality. Are you kidding me? That's not analysis, that's a shrug with a microphone. Now here's what I'm rolling for you in this segment. The LAX tower, the LAX tower tape, where a DHL crew tells the tower their anti-skid was off and the brake locked up, then asked if they should shut the engines down while fire crews knocked the flames off Boeing 737-800. You need to hear how calm those pilots were. So that woman at O'Hare who said that she was relieved it happened on the ground, she had a plan for the worst case. And the agency with billions didn't. That instinct is exactly why I keep telling you to plan ahead with Noble Gold Investments. We've got midterm elections coming up, control of Congress on the line, and markets hate uncertainty. Uncertainty breeds volatility, and the next few months could be the most volatile stretch for our stock market and our economy that we've seen. Physical gold and silver hedge that volatility. And Noble Gold spent over a decade helping everyday Americans protect their wealth with precious metals. Simple, easy, and safe. Go to nextnewsgold.com. or call Noble Gold at 877-646-5347. And for America's 250th, mention my name and get a 10-ounce silver bar when you open a new qualified account. Luck is not a maintenance program, folks. So lots of chunks of tire going down the runway. That's just one witness at O'Hare, not a headline writer. Rubber shredding across an active runway. And nobody's ordered a full ramp debris sweep, so watch what the officials say. They'll look at carefully objects on the ramp that they already know about. Let's get into it. Dispatch audio says an American Airlines flight at O'Hare had blowing right tires in the main gear. Let's check in.
We understand that you've got, I can see 2 blown right tires on your main gear.
New video shows firefighters leading passengers off an American Airlines flight at O'Hare Airport in Chicago after 2 tires blew out as the plane pushed back from the gate headed for Charlotte.
It was a big thud, and I was like, oh, that didn't sound good.
Passengers deplaning on the taxiway using stairs and bus to the terminal.
A passenger says she was relieved it happened on the ground. She's not the only one. This is at least the 4th tire blowout at O'Hare this month.
I was like relieved because, I didn't want to be in the air and God forbid, try to land on tires that were busted up.
And this is not an isolated incident. This is at least the 4th time tires have blown out on planes at O'Hare this month.
We saw lots of chunks of tire going down the runway.
Last week, 2 planes suffering blown tires just out.
Last week as well. 4 blowouts, different runways, different taxiways. It's hard to say what they have in common, and the FAA promises that they will investigate.
Downfield.
All of the incidents happening on different runways and taxiways.
It's hard to say at this particular point whether there's any point of commonality between and among the different tire situations in O'Hare in the last 2 weeks, but there will be some things that will be looked at very carefully, including objects on the ramp that the planes might have run over.
Nobody was hurt. American Airlines is apologizing to their passengers. The FAA says they will investigate. Not clear why this.
Now listen to what's happening at LAX. The crew reports the anti-skid off and the brake locked up.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, our anti-skid was in off there. I don't know if we blew a tire, but it feels like the brake's locked up.
Yes, sir. For right now, you have a small tire on your left gear. We're now getting water on it.
Wow. Fire on the runway. Emergency crews moving in on that LAX aircraft, and the crews asked the question nobody wants to hear on a taxiway.
Just about knocked down, so we'll take a look at the rest of your aircraft.
Roger. You want us to shut down?
You can stand by at one on that.
Yeah, maybe shutting down the engine would be a good idea. Quote, I was relieved because I didn't want to be in the air and, God forbid, try to land on tires that were busted up. That's a passenger at gate level, understanding the physics better than the agency with $1 billion budget. The FAA's entire contribution to this was a press line saying that they'll investigate. Nobody's been hurt yet. That's luck, and luck is not a maintenance program. So give me a date, not a promise. How many ramp inspections did the FAA actually run at O'Hare this month? Who signed the last brake anti-skid check on that Charter 737? When does the public see the findings? President Trump put real money and real hardware back into the system after years of rot. Now the agency has to show its work. And don't you dare be afraid to fly. Be furious that a mom buckling her kid into 22C on a Tuesday has to wonder if the wheels hold. So drop a comment if you've flown through O'Hare this month, because I want the receipts from you, not from a podium. And this is the part that I hope you get bored with. We don't. 4 blowouts, 1 shrug. That's exactly why we don't wait for a podium to tell us anything. Text White House to 844-840-4963. Next News Network holds credentials inside that building, and the reports our people pull out of it hit your phone every night. No algorithm standing in the way. Now, reading, of course, is step 1. Step 2 is being useful, taking action. That's what you want to do. Text Signal to that same number and enlist in the Next News Signal Corps. Real missions, real ranks, a command center full of patriots pushing what legacy media won't touch. So come get in with us tonight. We are running through this news hot tonight. Thank you for joining us. We are streaming live on all platforms on Next News at X and with our streaming partner at Trump Daily Post. What's up, Todd? Good to see you tonight. We're also on Facebook and Twitch and on mobile in our flagship YouTube channel, where you can watch us in horizontal or vertical. Take your pick, whatever floats your boat, whatever's easiest for you. We're trying to make it simple for you to experience the news with the Next News Network. My name is Gary Franchi. I am your chief White House correspondent for the Next News Network. We're getting into our next story. This one is rather interesting because it has to do with Putin and a special meeting he's going to have next week. Yes, let's get into it. $25 billion for Russian reactors going up in southern Iran. And next week, Putin sits down with Pezeshkian in Kazakhstan to speed it all up. Persia and the power to her north, signing paper while the missiles are still warm. That's the map that we're told to watch. And there's a name that flew into Moscow first. You see, 95% of Iran's electricity, it comes from fossil fuel. And that's why Rosatom is building 5 gigawatts in Hormozgan province. But you and I both know nobody bombs a power plant. Ezekiel 38:5, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them. All of them with shield and helmet. Now, Persia is Iran. Nobody seriously argues that one. And this deal survived a U.S.-Israeli offensive that chased Rosatom's people out of Bushehr. So stay with me, because I'm going to read to you what Iran's own nuclear chief just said about letting inspectors near those sites. So Persia and the North, they're setting a date. And one day before that announcement, CIA Director Ratcliffe landed in Moscow on a military transport, unannounced. Now look at the order of it. Washington flies in. The meeting that matters gets scheduled without us. So Iran's ambassador to Russia has announced that President Pezeshkian and Putin are set to meet next week in Kyrgyzstan on the sidelines of the SCO summit. The SCO summit gives both presidents diplomatic cover for what is basically a bilateral crisis management meeting. Two governments are simultaneously under U.S. economic pressure. Pezeshkian and Putin have a mutual strategic interest in preventing the total financial isolation of Iran, considering Russia is the country's most significant remaining ally and purchaser of Iranian oil. Plans for that meeting come one day after CIA Director Ratcliffe made an unannounced visit to Moscow on a U.S. military transport plane. So Persia and Rosh sitting down face to face, and a day before the meeting was announced. The CIA director was on the ground in Moscow. Now watch what the two of them put down on paper. Russia-Iran signing a $2.5 billion deal for new nuclear power plants. That's according to Mir. Are you tracking with me here? We're bombing them. We don't want them to have a nuclear program, but now Russia is investing $2.5 billion for nuclear power plants in Iran. So they're meeting next week to cement the energy alliance. Global oil and gas markets will be watching closely. Could this shift the balance of power? It's $25 billion in nuclear plants. That is not a summit photo op. That's the North wiring itself into Persia for the next 50 years. So here's the breakdown. A $25 billion nuclear handshake, Russia doubles down on Iran's nuclear program. Iranian President Mossad is set to meet Vladimir Putin next week on the sidelines. At the top of the agenda, $25 billion nuclear deal. Do you see what's happening here, folks? The agreement, already signed in October, involves Rosatom building 4 advanced nuclear reactors with a combined 5 gigawatt capacity in Iran's southern Hormozgan province. It's part of Iranian broader push towards 20 gigawatts of nuclear power. It's more than just energy. For Iran, the deal is about energy security. President Trump is... Think about what this means. President Trump keeps talking about bombing bridges and power plants. Russia steps in to reinforce their nuclear energy ambitions with Iran. $25 billion nuclear plant. President Trump threatens to bomb the power plants. Oh, but those are Russian-backed power plants. Do you see how this could blow out of proportion very quickly? For Iran, the deal is about energy security. The country generates about 95% of its electricity from fossil fuels, with natural gas alone accounting for 90%. For Russia, it's about strengthening its foothold in the region and deepening its strategic partnership with Iran. The project has already survived a U.S.-Israeli military offensive earlier this year, which forced Rosatom to evacuate most of its personnel from that plant. Now, with construction resuming and new reactors planned, Russia is signaling it will not abandon Iran, sanctions or no sanctions. Now, do you remember economic D-Day that was just announced? Any nation that does deals with Iran will face crippling sanctions. So what happens next? What happens with Russia cutting this deal? You see how it's all intertwined? Let's listen to what this commentator has to say.
Iran and Russia just signed a $25 billion deal to build new nuclear plants in Iran, including what is going to be Iran's largest nuclear power plant to date. After months of war and decades of sanctions to try and stop Iran's nuclear program, Putin came in to save the day. And next week, Iranian President Pezeshkian and Russian President Vladimir Putin will be meeting in Kyrgyzstan, where I'm sure they're going to discuss this amongst many other issues. This new deal between Iran's Atomic Energy Association and Russia's Rosatom will oversee the construction of 4 new third-generation nuclear plants. They'll be located in Sarik, Hormozgan province, and southern Iran. It's worth noting also that the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, was in Moscow yesterday. Word on the street is he was in Russia to pressure President Putin into getting Iran to open up the Strait of Hormuz. It turns out that he flew all that way for nothing, because President Putin didn't even meet with him, and the next day we got a major new announcement between Russia and Iran building more nuclear power plants.
Are you guys tracking with me on this? I certainly hope so. 4 new third-generation reactors built by Rosatom, and there's the Ratcliffe visit again. This reading says the pressure was about the Strait. Vonbury Research, they're expected to meet at the summit. Russia and Iran trying to accelerate implementation of their signed $2.5 billion build-out. This is what happens If this happens, Iran gets Russian tech, more power capacity, and less reliance on China. Russia gets decades of influence inside Iran's nuclear sector and a role in any future nuclear settlement. Here's the headline. Iran and Russia signed two $25 billion agreement to build 4 nuclear power plants in Iran. So what does each side actually walk away with? The next one lays out the trade. Iran gets the tech, cuts its dependence on China. Russia gets permanent seat in the program. Tehran, Moscow relations accelerated under the Peshkian administration with the sixth Peshkian-Putin meeting on the way. Kazem Jalali, Iran's ambassador to Russia, Iran views its relations with Moscow as strategic under President Peshkian's administration.
نگاه جمهوری اسلامی ایران به روابط با روسیه نگاه راهبردی است. در دولت جناب آقای دکتر پزشکیان روابط
Now look at how fast Tehran and Moscow have pulled together under the agreement. Open source intel, Iran's nuclear chief, the IAEA, cannot request inspection till it draws up a protocol. Iran remains in a wartime situation and its nuclear sites have not been secured for inspection. So while the North builds the reactors, Tehran is shutting the door on inspectors. Iran's nuclear chief says the IAEA gets nothing until this protocol, and the country is still in a wartime posture. The IAEA chief, Rafael Grossi, says there is no active negotiating channel between Tehran and Washington, although the agency remains in contact with both sides. He added there is no firm evidence of nuclear activity at the Kulang, the underground complex near Natanz. So Iran's nuclear chief says that the IAEA cannot request inspections until it draws up a protocol because Iran remains in a wartime situation. So read that again with Ezekiel 38 open right in front of you. Persia armed, Persia shut, Persia signing with the power to her north while she calls herself at war. That's the arrangement interpreters have watched for generations forming on a Tuesday. So ask the IAEA's Rafael Grossi why there's no negotiating channel between Tehran and Washington. He said it himself, no active channel, only contact. That's a door that's closing, folks. So here's the honest part, and I'll say it once because we can tell the difference. This is an alignment, not a fulfillment of prophecy. As Russia is disputed. Togarma, as Turkey, is disputed. Gomer, Sheba, Dedan, not assembled. Now, of course, I'm not setting a date. I'm not calling it done. But Persia deepening their ties with the North while inspectors are locked out, well, that's on the watch list. And it stays right there. So share this because it's not just an energy story. And tell me in the comments what you would watch for next because watching is the assignment. And I've got a faster way for you to do it with me. When Peshkian and Putin shake hands next week, you shouldn't be finding out about it 3 days late from a network that buries it on page 9. Text White House to 844-840-4963. Next News Network carries credentials inside that building. The reporting we can't fit into a broadcast goes straight into your phone daily, past whatever the algorithm feels like showing you. Now, some of you don't want just the intelligence, you want a post. You want to take action. So text Signal to that same number and a list in the Next News Signal Corps, one board, real assignments, and thousands of patriots pushing stories the legacy press pretends aren't happening. Okay, moving right along. Okay, I'm just checking out your comments here. All right, let's get into what's going on. RFK Jr. is demanding action in New Jersey. Apparently there's some disputed numbers with respect to what they're claiming about measles. So we're going to get into that right now in just a moment. And then we got that NFL controversy coming up after that. They can't find any measles deaths. That is Bobby Kennedy on camera quoting the Lancaster County Commissioner's own statement, 0. And then he says Josh Shapiro's administration is refusing to cooperate with the federal government. Refusing. So where did the body count actually go? Right? That's the one sentence that stopped me cold. A county commissioner in Lancaster checked the records and came back with nothing. Zero. And Bobby Kennedy, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, still can't get the files out of Harrisburg. So think about who acted on those numbers. Parents, school boards, employers, you. Josh Shapiro's people are sitting on the paperwork right now and telling the federal government to pound sand. So here's what's next. Kennedy's exact words about whether those deaths even happened, and then Dr. Oz on tape walking you straight back to 2021. Died of versus died with. You see, when a government's office can't hand you a body count and refuse to show you the paperwork, you start asking what else on the official ledger is real. Your savings, for one. We got midterm elections coming up, control of Congress in line, and markets hate uncertainty. Uncertainty breeds volatility. Between now and November, it could be the most volatile stretch for the stock market and economy that we've seen in years. So here's the good news. Noble Gold Investments has spent over a decade helping everyday Americans protect their wealth with precious metals, physical gold, and silver you can actually hold to hedge that volatility. Simple, easy, and safe. Go to nextnewsgold.com or call Noble Gold at 877-646-5347. Mention my name for a free 10-ounce silver bar for America's 250th when you open a new qualified account. Now back to Pennsylvania's missing paperwork. Dr. Oz used the word erroneously. Not misleading, not tragic, erroneously. Now watch him say it because he's a sitting official telling you the government got death attribution wrong before and might be doing it again right now. So let's go ahead and pull up the tweets. A scandal is erupting in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, reporting 0 measles death. RFK Jr. indicates that Governor Josh Shapiro, his administration, might have fabricated measles deaths just to attack him. So he says here, RFK, according to the statement that was released by Lancaster County Commissioner, they cannot find any measles death. The state is refusing to cooperate. We're trying to figure out who those deaths were and whether they actually happened. Dr. Oz says the same thing happened with COVID. Kids counted as deaths who never died of it. And here's his warning on Pennsylvania.
I do want to caution you. You used a phrase that I want to be thoughtful about because I don't want to fearmonger and I don't want anyone in America concerned inappropriately. We don't know exactly what happened in Pennsylvania yet. We don't know if these children died from measles or they had another condition that was already attacking them and they just happened to get measles at the same time. We lived this during COVID where we erroneously attributed children dying to COVID when in fact they didn't die of COVID. They were dying and they happened to have COVID in their system at that time. So I want to encourage everybody, get your measles vaccine, but I also want to highlight that the incidence of measles vaccination really hasn't dropped much in this administration. You know when it did drop? During COVID. And the reason for that is American moms lost confidence in what the scientific community was telling them. They didn't believe the messaging around COVID, so they applied that to the measles vaccine, which is unfortunate because you should get your measles vaccine, but understandable. We've got to be honest and transparent with people, which is why we feel strongly that parents should have the right to decide what goes into the bodies of their children. On the surface, that makes perfect sense, but in many states, that's not allowed. Mothers are told what they have to do, and it doesn't make sense.
None of it makes sense, does it? None of it makes sense at all. So Kennedy said it very plainly. We're trying to figure out who those deaths were and whether they actually happened. Josh Shapiro, he can end that sentence tonight with 3 death certificates, and he won't do it. So produce the names, Governor. Produce the death certificates. Produce the cause of death determinations, and this ends in an hour. Nobody on this show is telling you that the measles is harmless. Nobody's telling you what to do with your kids. I'm telling you, demand the receipts because Lancaster County already answered and the state went silent. Remember when the fentanyl numbers dropped from 48,000 to 38,000? This administration published it, sourced it. Let anybody check the math. See, that's the difference. One side shows its work. Drop a comment if you want Shapiro to release those files and share this with the mom in your life who stopped trusting these people in 2021. She was right then and she's right now. That's exactly why we built our own line direct to you. You see, Kennedy, he's fighting for those case files. And not whatever the press lose the same night that it breaks. Text White House 844-840-4963. We're credentialed inside that building, and what our press pool pulls off the ground there goes straight to your phone. No algorithm standing in the middle. Now here's the fun part. Reading it is round one. Action is the next step. So text signal to that same number, enlist in the next news signal corps, and you'll get told exactly where to push a story. Everybody working off one board so the truth doesn't live or die on this platform. Come get in with us tonight. Okay, our next story tonight. We don't often go into the sports world, but this is interesting because draft picks are at risk. NFL busts the lobby handshake. We're going to get into that story. Interesting scandal in the NFL. Let's get into that. Violations may subject clubs to the loss of draft choices and or fines. That's the line that the NFL's own memo, broken by Tom Pelissero. A team can now lose a draft pick over a handshake, not a hit, not a holdout, a whispered deal that nobody wrote down. In the same day, the league and the union gutted the fine system. Watch. 3 violations in one season. Hip drop, horse collar, launching, blindside block, hit on a defenseless player, and you're suspended a game. 1 violation, you get your fine money back in full. Every player starts 2026 clean, and here's the part that I love. The coach has to sit in that meeting with the league when his guy is approaching the line. Clubs with excessive violations pay more. I'm going to put the joint statement on the screen dated August 26, and then I'm going to pull the memo language about the draft picks word for word. So the NFL, they just wrote down a rule before the loophole turned into a scandal. And I wish Washington worked like that because it doesn't. We've got midterm elections coming up, control of Congress on the line, and markets hate uncertainty. Between now and November, uncertainty breeds volatility, and this could be the most volatile stretch for the stock market and economy we've seen in years. So here is the good news. Noble Gold Investments spent over a decade helping everyday Americans protect their wealth with precious metals. Physical gold and silver hedge that volatility, and they make it simple, easy, and safe. Go to nextnewsgold.com or call Noble Gold at 877-646-5347. That's the number you see on your screen right there. And for America's 250th birthday, mention my name and get a 10-ounce silver bar free when you open a new qualified account. Don't let Election Day arrive without a plan. Now back to that memo, right? Ron Rivera is now in the pool of former players who oversee on-field discipline hearings. 9 seasons as a player, years as a head coach. That man knows what a coach technique looks like versus a mistake. Pelissero posted both documents. I'm going to pull up the tweets right now. The NFL and the NFLPA have agreed to overhaul the fines system for on-field acts by players that violate the league's health and safety rules, emphasizing punishment for repeat offenders while relieving the financial burden on players for single infractions. So the joint statement spells it out: 3 violations in a season, and you're suspended. The clubs eat the penalties too. Ron Rivera is now sitting on the appeals hearing. The joint statement: clubs with excessive health and safety rule violations will also face increased financial penalties. Ron Rivera has been added to the pool of former players who oversee hearings for the on-field discipline. Here is the joint statement from the NFL and the NFLPA. Dated August 26. For the last several months, the NFL and NFL Players Association have worked together to update the league's on-field accountability system. Clubs were briefed on the changes at today's league meeting in Atlanta, while player leadership was briefed and voted on the changes at a board of player representatives meeting on Tuesday. The goal is simple: make the game safer by focusing discipline on the techniques most likely to result in player injury rather than players who make isolated mistakes during competition. You can see the list right there. Greater emphasis on health and safety rule violations. Players who commit 3 offenses in any of these categories during a season will be suspended for 1 game. Players who commit only 1 violation will receive 50% of their fine back at the end of the season. While violations in these categories will carry forward to subsequent seasons, all players will begin 2026 with a clean slate. Players who also have a clearer and faster path to reducing the impact of prior offenses than under the previous system. So now the league turns to something else entirely. A memo just went out to all 32 clubs about players heading back to college football, and it comes with a warning. The NFL is sending a memo to clubs outlining rules that apply to newly eligible players who return to college football and warning teams they're prohibited from any agreements or understandings about the player's future or potential return. So this is the notice as we approach the 53-player roster reduction. We write to remind clubs of the NFL rules governing player eligibility under NFL collective bargaining agreement and the Constitution and bylaws. Recent litigation concerning NCAA eligibility rules has led certain players who signed NFL player contracts for the 2026 season to seek return to collegiate football this season. Although questions concerning college eligibility are matters for the NCAA and the courts, the following NFL rules may apply to these situations. A player who signed an NFL player contract that is subsequently terminated by the NFL club may return to college football subject to applicable NCAA eligibility rules. Such a player may practice and play football with another NFL club by signing an NFL player contract or with another professional or amateur football league. Any offset of compensation previously paid or guaranteed to the player will be governed by the terms of the applicable NFL player contract. So, lose a player, lose a draft pick, and the general manager can get suspended right along with it. Violations may subject clubs to the loss of draft choices and or fines, and club personnel may also be subject to fines or suspensions. So players can return to college if cut. Those players can't play in the NFL in 2026, and no advance deals to sign them in 2027 is allowed. So a cut player can go back to college, cannot play in the NFL in 2026, and no club may hold any undisclosed understanding about signing him in 2027. The league didn't outlaw the roster move, it outlawed the secret. And that's the right call, and it's the one that nobody expected them to make. So enforce it. That's the whole thing. The NFL and the NFLPA sat down for months and came out with something that actually protects the guy taking the hit and closes the hotel lobby loophole before it became a scandal. Two sides that fight about everything. Notice how strange it feels? It shouldn't. Tom Pelissero broke both stories, and he'll break the first one too. They get tested. So I want to see a club actually lose a pick because a rule nobody enforces is worse than no rule at all. Drop a comment below. Yes or no, does the league ever take a draft pick over one of these? Share this with a guy in your family who screams at the TV every Sunday. He needs to see the memo. And there's more I couldn't fit in here because Pelissero got that memo because somebody inside handed it to him. That's how real reporting works, and it's exactly how we work the White House. Text White House to 844-840-4963, and our credentialed press pool sends you the file from inside the building every night, including the reporting that this broadcast couldn't carry. Reading it is step one, and text Signal to that same number and list in the next news Signal Corps, and you get an assignment instead of an article. Everybody working off the same board, so come get in with us tonight. All right, that is the show tonight. Thank you guys for joining us across all platforms. On X, on Trump Daily Post, Next News, Rumble, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, horizontal and vertical. Pick the platform. Whatever platform you pick, make sure you are following us. And when those X posts come out on Next News, I need your help right now. Not YouTube, but X is making some changes to their creator program. Isn't that always something? There's all these social platforms always changing the rules. Well, we are about this far away for making sure that we can maintain our monetization on X. Now, we don't make a whole lot of money on X, but it does help pay a small amount of the bills here. So if you want to help us out, go to our home page, our timeline on X, and just start, hitting those posts that we make, share them out. I think we need about 32,000 impressions to break that threshold so that we can ensure that we keep our monetization on X. It always feels like we're on the cusp of fighting some level of demonetization here, but I guess that just goes with the territory when you speak the truth to power every single night for 20 years. I love you guys. Thanks for hanging with us tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless, and sleep well.